Supersets suck. Yeah, I, I don't really. I think people are gonna get mad, and these videos I make where I do come up with these controversial takes. Of course, if you watch me regularly, you're gonna maybe tune in. But truthfully, if you're here, you're probably here to yell at me in the comments, to argue with me, to say I'm wrong, to come in with maybe a bit of an emotional response. And before you do that, before you run to hit the dislike button, give me a little bit of an opportunity to change your mind, give you my counterpoints, and maybe I end up with a subscribe and a like if I present myself well and explain things well. So let's talk about supersets. I will admit I'll take the knee, and before we get into anything, I'm going to start with accepting that there is one scenario where my face goes so bright that it reflects light itself. No, there is one scenario where supersets are completely valid and I will actually not care if you use them. Although, I still think it's not the best move because there's probably something better that you could probably do, truthfully. But there is one scenario where I will let you get away with it. And that's if you're genuinely very, very short on time and you happen to be somewhat new in the gym, or maybe, you know, within the first 2 years, and it's on some, like, arm stuff, some isolations. We'll break down why that actually is, but let's talk about the kind of logical reasoning behind the stance of supersets sucking. And, yeah, beginners are doing this. If you're a beginner, if you're doing supersets, you haven't really gained the ability to push hard enough or activate enough of your muscle fibers or it to be anywhere near challenging enough for it to actually matter as much as it would for someone's a bit more intermediate and advanced. But trust me, supersets are something that actually suck. It's just when you're new, you can outrun it because you can't reach up onto, you know, activating certain muscle fibers yet. But to kind of explain, let's go in, and it comes off of a similar, not a similar, but it's kind of like there's two paths. We have supersets here, and then we have rest times here. And rest times actually uncovers the reason why supersets aren't a good idea. Now, hopefully I'm not going to give you another thing to argue about and destroy another thing, but for anyone who's been around the fitness space for a little bit now, you will know that the rest times we used to be recommended, which were like 60 seconds to 90 seconds, are ridiculous. They're too short. They don't give us enough time to recover from many different fatigue systems, which are actually going to impact our ability to build muscle. And if I can get you accepting that rest times need to be a bit longer, at least 2 minutes, maybe even go up to 3, not for strength, but actually for building muscle, then already I've got the in I need. If I don't have that, this isn't a video about rest times, so unfortunately, I don't think I can do much there, but who knows, I might make a video on rest times. But it is clear that those longer rest times, allowing your cardiovascular system, even if you have great cardio, allowing some of that CNS fatigue to, you know, dissipate into the environment a little bit, like heat in, I don't know, 7th grade chemistry or biology, whatever that subject is. Probably neither of those, it's probably physics. But if you accept that, and then obviously calcium ion, blah, 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 metabolite, blah, 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 if you allow the fact that clearing that has to be done in order to be able to maintain high multi-unit recruitment and be able to crush the next set and get a good stimulus, then just keep listening, because I'm going to get that like and maybe even that subscribe. Because here's the thing. Rest times, when we look at it and we see that it's literally something like short rest sets end up being 5, you know, you got to do like 5 of them to get like 1 proper rest set worth of stimulus because of how bad it ends up being. When we accept that, we can take a look at supersets and we can ask ourselves, when all these things exist which make higher rest times better, when there are things like removing the CNS component, removing the cardio component, maybe even removing the calcium ion in that peripheral, you know, localized muscle area, even if we're using a different one, we kind of go, you know, when it comes to supersets, don't those things still matter? Now, of course, some of them aren't going to matter as much, but they're still going to be present. they're not going to magically disappear. And if you're a beginner, like I said, maybe it doesn't matter as much. But if you're not a beginner, do you truthfully think that you can have these higher rest times because you recognize they're good? But with supersets, something's different? Because the cardiovascular demand, maybe smaller isolations, it doesn't pop up. And truthfully, if you've been taking care of your health, the cardio component never really pops up as an issue. But the CNS component, that's still going to exist. And we're not even talking about the calcium ion component. When you get that metabolite build-up in an area, you know, I'm super pumped in my shoulders and my biceps or whatever, and then I hit some triceps. All this stuff here is sending feedback to my CNS, saying we are already in a fatigued state. And that is not going to let me push as hard on my triceps. So, yeah, like I said earlier, we could maybe give an exception if someone's a bit newer, if they're doing somewhat, you know, isolation, a little bit easier stuff, because you're going to be almost maxing up your ability to, you know, recruit the muscle fibers anyway. Maybe we let it slide a little. But truthfully, if someone's a bit more intermediate, if they're taking this seriously, unless you're supersetting something to save time, which is also the latter muscle, like you're literally like, I do not care about blah 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 muscle, I'm gonna throw it into a superset so that you can get somewhat of a stimulus, but I don't really care. That's like the only way we can let it slide, because otherwise we cannot let it slide. There's no possible world in which we can accept longer rest times but not superset sucking. But if you really decide that you have to do those supersets, and you decide that for whatever reason just removing a set or two from your exercise to, you know, have more time in the day, or removing time somewhere elsewhere in your life, you know, you look at your screen time app and you realize you're spending 12 hours weekly on TikTok or something, there is the time. But let's say that's the case. Maybe it's family, driving, whatever, you're working out, who knows, right? In these scenarios, if you're going to do a superset and you're not going to remove a single set from anything else, just make sure it's only with isolations. Just make sure it's only with easy exercise, and preferably muscles you don't really care about getting bigger. Do not do the stuff I see fitness creators throwing in their workout programs for advanced individuals, not even beginners, but advanced individuals, where they are supersetting pull-ups with some sort of press, but they're supersetting presses with some sort of row. What makes it worse, I don't want to go into some tangent, and I will stop real quick on this little side note. What makes it worse is most of these guys are doing it with super unstable things too, which makes it even worse. And people wonder why they're plateauing. There's a reason people plateau, and it's not because they don't have good genetics or the exercise isn't the right one, or sometimes the exercise can make a difference, but usually it's something more core to the workout itself. And that would be intensity, that would be rest times, that would be sets, that would be frequency, that would be rest days. Heck, even tempo. But if you are still here, if you're still listening to me, I hope I introduced an interesting perspective. Maybe you don't subscribe. Maybe you don't fully agree with me and you still stand by supersets and you think it's not that big of a difference. But if I have started to introduce into your mind some sort of discourse where you're questioning things now, where you're not viewing them as positively as you did before, where you're saying, maybe there's a marginal difference, but maybe this is actually better. Maybe I at least get the like. Maybe I at least get the comment. I don't know. And if you want to hear more from me, if you're now like some sort of super fan or whatever, my newsletter is down in the description. That's where I nurture you guys. That's where I give you all the juicy stuff. That's where I don't sit on my channel where I always forget to make videos and there's a long time. Oh, that's not going to help anyone subscribe. I make videos every single day on here. In fact, as you can see, I've done 2 this year, and it's... Look, I have been posting newsletters consistently offering actual insight and actionable lessons you can implement almost instantly every single day for like the past 4 months. I know it doesn't sound like a long time, but for me that is a long time, and for the amount of new and not rewashed stuff I've thrown out on there, it's really good. So go check that out. Go subscribe to that newsletter. I'd rather you subscribe to that than here. It even has an app. I don't know why I keep saying it even has an app when I do a video, but I find it quite cool. I can get notifications when my newsletter comes out. I wrote it, so I should really know what it's going to be about. But thank you for watching, and I really hope you enjoyed.